This is the USS Equinox. It's the first Starfleet ship that the USS Voyager encounters in the Delta Quadrant. It only appears in the two-parter episode Equinox, but it has numerous connections to previous Star Trek productions. Here we'll cover its backstory, the real-life design process, its later appearances, the ship's exterior and interior, and a bunch of other random stuff. This is the USS Equinox. Let's start with a quick summary of the USS Equinox. If you're watching this video, you've probably already seen the episode, but if you haven't, here's the Cliff Notes version. Voyager receives a distress call from another Starfleet vessel. It's the USS Equinox. When they rendezvous, the Equinox is badly crippled, the crew is on the brink of starvation, and this dude has awesome hair. Allegedly, it's been under attack from these alien-looking aliens. It turns out that they've been summoning these life forms using... just watch the episode. Anyway, they've been killing these life forms because their nucleogenic bodies enhance the Equinox's warp drive, allowing them to get home quicker. It's a classic Star Trek episode that poses the question, do the ends justify the means? Anyway, the captain eventually accepts his responsibility, the Equinox crew is rescued by a Voyager, and the captain sacrifices himself along with the ship to save everyone.
You've got a fine crew, Captain! Promise me you'll get them home!
Okay, so that's the ship's backstory. Now, what about the ship? According to Captain Janeway, the Equinox is a Nova-class vessel that's only capable of Warp 8. Considering that Voyager is capable of Warp 9.975, that makes this Nova-class pretty slow. It's kinda like a Chevy Nova. We get a glimpse of its dedication plaque. We can't make anything out besides the ship's name thanks to it being in standard definition. But we can see something that's essential to all Starfleet vessels. The dedication plaque was clearly blown off when the ship took damage, and when ships take damage, you get In the Delta Quadrant, the Nova class didn't fare as well as the Intrepid class, which was designed for long-term exploration missions. The Nova class was a smaller, slower vessel. It's primarily a science scout vessel that's not suitable for long-term missions or combat operations.
The Equinox is a Nova-class ship. It was designed for planetary research, not long-range tactical missions.
It's kind of a small ship for basic tasks. Again,
Chevy Nova.
Hello, everybody.
the Equinox started off its life not on Voyager, even though that's where it made its first appearance. The design was actually first used in the DS9 technical manual. The Nova class also appeared in an earlier Star Trek technical manual, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Here it is as it appeared in the DS9 technical manual. It was designed by long-term Star Trek artists Rick Sternbach and Doug Drexler. Sternbach sketched the concept, and Drexler created the render you see here. This design represented a fictional rejected concept of what would become the USS Defiant. In other words, this wasn't an actual, in real life concept for the Defiant like these were. This ship was a fictional one that was whipped together for the sake of having stuff to put in the DS9 technical manual, or as I like to call it, the DS9 technical manual. Wait, that's the same thing. At this point, since the Defiant was a concept, it was designed to be a small, nimble combat ship. You can see these 4 torpedo launchers up front. You can also see that the bridge dome is the same design that was used on the actual Defiant.
The future, disco.
And down the spine, it uses 2 rows of these circular things, just like the Defiant. Now, flash forward to early 1999. Sternbach was tasked with designing the USS Equinox for the Season 5 finale. The script called for a smaller ship than Voyager. Sternbach didn't have much time, or possibly no time at all, to design something completely new. So he took this Defiant concept and started modifying it. Using state-of-the-art imaging technology, I will attempt to seamlessly transition this Defiant prototype to Sternbach's Equinox proposal. Success! Here we have it. This is Rick Sternbach's proposal to the producers for what the Equinox should look like. It's virtually identical to the Defiant concepts, but it's got a few tweaks. The hull is elongated, making the ship proportionally more narrow. And the center launchers are replaced with a navigational deflector. Elsewhere, Voyager-style recessed windows were added. This proposal is dated March 1999, and the episode started filming in March 1999, which gives you an idea of how little time the art team had to design anything for any given episode. Also worth mentioning, this was the 26th and final episode of that season, so everyone was likely exhausted and probably feeling like this guy. Another artist, Tim Earls, designed the ventral side of the ship, which he deduced had 8 decks. Immediately after the pristine CG model was created, damage was added because that's what the script called for. And that's the ship we see here. The hull has a lot of weathering and scorch marks. It's also got a unibrow. Now, let's take a look at what we find on the finished design. I may use some footage from an Eagle Moss model because a lot of the footage from the episode is low resolution. The warp nacelles and pylons use a very similar design to what's seen on the Enterprise E. They also have these 2 fin-like pieces on each nacelle, similar to those used on the original series Enterprise. The underside is virtually the same as Voyager, with the saucer sitting directly on top of the drive section. Star Trek designers were really big on this no-neck look at the time. The lower saucer also has this small vessel embedded in the center, similar to Voyager and the Enterprise. The designers put it there, but the idea wasn't utilized in the episode. Below that, we see an infinity stone, for some reason. From the front, you can see 2 navigational deflectors because you can't have too many of those. On the dorsal side, the bridge dome retains a similar design to what's used on Defiant. That gives the Equinox visual elements from 4 branches of the Star Trek franchise: TOS, TNG, DS9, and VOI. Yeah, I know no one refers to Voyager as VOI, but it makes sense. The Equinox's interior also has some interesting lineage to past Star Treks. We see a few areas of the ship, but the only room we get a clear look at is the bridge. As you can see, it has rocks. But beneath those rocks is a bridge very similar to that used on Voyager. It's got the 2 command chairs in the center and a single-person ops station up front. Most immediately, the Equinox's bridge is a redress of the USS Prometheus's bridge, which appeared in an episode a year earlier. They both have doors on the port and starboard sides, and 4 pillars in the aft, with this padded lower half in the middle 2 sections. Though, this isn't the earliest use of this bridge set. This bridge set actually dates all the way back to 1988 during the filming of Star Trek V. At that time, it was the brand new Enterprise A bridge set. It was used again in Star Trek VI, which I'll use for this comparison. As you can see, it has the same port and starboard door locations, and the padded sections just as they would appear later on the Prometheus and Equinox. This really bridges the gap between TOS and VOI. See, I did 2 things there. We're not quite done yet. There's a few more Nova class topics to cover. The class would later appear in an alternate future.
Warning, vessel approaching, vector 121 Mark 6.
Here it's the USS Rhode Island, whose captain is Harry Kim in old guy makeup. Anyway, since this is the future, the Rhode Island is a refit of the original Nova class. Here's a rundown of what's different on this version of the ship. The front navigational deflector gap is filled in and now features a smaller secondary deflector. The bridge dome is now a more traditional Starfleet bridge dome as opposed to the recessed Defiant-like bridge dome used on the original Nova class. Flanking that are new escape pods, which have a hexagonal shape. Behind that, the impulse exhaust is repositioned and the entire dorsal spine is smoothed out. The Bassard collectors are also slightly tweaked with a little more hull plating added. And recall how the nacelles had the original Constitution class fin-like pieces? This version uses single side fins like those used on the refit Constitution class. We're still not done with the Nova class's connection with the past. Back in 1991, fictional concepts of what the Enterprise E might look like appeared in the TNG technical manual. These concepts were designated as being Nova class. These two have noticeable similarities to the Nova class we would eventually see. There's a strong resemblance with the drive section and dorsal spine on this one. And moving over to this other one, we see the arrowhead saucer design. These concepts are from 8 years before the Nova class would eventually debut. Incidentally, these concepts were also designed by Rick Sternbach. The Nova class makes its final appearance on Enterprise in the episode Azeti Prime. It's barely visible fighting alongside the Enterprise J. It's so brief it's not even worth mentioning. Even though I just did. Okay, we're done. So that's the video. As always, I'd like to thank these nucleogenic life forms for helping support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Hey everyone, I have to extend the end of this video because there's so many awesome people on Patreon contributing, and I just want to make sure there's enough time to get everyone's name in. Anyways, thanks again. I'm exhausted. Alright, I need a shower. Bye.
I really want you to leave.